Hey everybody, this is my first video ever, so I really hope you enjoy it. I made this video as a final project for a course that I'm doing right now called Geography 100. I've titled the video My Personal Geography, and yes, it was created and is narrated by me, Bitmoji. I know what you're thinking. Of all the things to do for a final project, why a video? So much effort. Yes, it was a lot of effort. Well, I didn't want to fail geography, If I didn't make this video, I would have failed. In fact, I still might fail even if I make this video, so please keep me in your prayers. No, it was my Geography 100 professor who, not knowingly, convinced me to do the video. Uh, she always says how videos are a good way for people to better understand the message that's being portrayed. Kind of how we learned that human geography is a way for people to understand places not just as physical locations, but as relationships between humans and the environment. So, for this video, I'm only going to target 3 places that are still very important and close to my heart. And of these places, I'm only going to further elaborate on them from an ecological point of view to keep it simple, because geography is just such a vast subject. Sit down, relax, strap up, grab popcorn, do whatever you gotta do to get comfortable, because this one's gonna be a long ride. Our first stop on this ride is my old boarding school, Waterford Kamhlaba, United World College of Southern Africa. As the name suggests, Waterford is located in the small southern African kingdom of Swaziland, right outside its capital, Mbabane. And as the name suggests, Waterford is situated on top of Kamhlaba Hill. Kamhlaba Hill is just a tiny portion of the very large Drakensberg mountain range that spans throughout South Africa and a bit of Lesotho and a bit of Swaziland. The mountain range is large and, as you can see by the pictures, hosts a vast array of ecosystems. Because there's so many ecosystems, there were a lot of animals. These are all the animals that I found living on campus: snakes, chameleons, and bugs galore. The bottom right hand picture is of me actually holding a chameleon. The school also was lush with plant life. Aloes and ferns were some of the indigenous species, whereas we also had alien species like wattles from South America and blue gum trees from Oceania. Now, the problem with invasive species, or in other terms, alien species, is that, well, they're invaders. They're not meant to be there, so they can be detrimental to the local flora and fauna. What happens is they show up, and because they're new, they don't really have any competition to keep their population in check. So they flourish and kind of rob the local species of, their rightful resources. The school's response to this invasive problem was to create its own student-fueled environmental task force. And the ETF, Environmental Task Force, was tasked with the cutting and chopping and removal of wattles and blue gum trees. I didn't really join the ETF voluntarily. It was a bit of a punishment. I was always getting in trouble in high school. It worked out though because I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot about ecology and plants and trees, and it also made me feel good. I felt like I was giving back to society, but more importantly to nature, which gives us so much. And I know know cutting trees doesn't sound like the most environmentally friendly activity, but blue gums and wattles take up a lot of unnecessary water that the school and community need to fuel its everyday activities. So you could say the ETF is an example of mankind giving back to the environment to further increase the ecosystem services, so like fresh air and fresh water that nature gives us. Like I said before, the increase of water is good for the school and the communities that live in and around. Doing this for the community means that our relationships are strengthened. We celebrate, and we dance, and we sing together because, everything's okay. We help each other out. Ah, yes, these dependencies and interdependencies between people and places and the environment is all an ever recurring theme in human geography. And if you notice hard enough, the story of my geography. Well, enough of that wish-wash and geo talk. Let's move on to our next stop. This is the residential area of South Downs. The South Downs is made up of a residential estate, a shopping center, a farm village, office parks, and a school starting from pre-primary and going all the way to grade 12. It's located in the suburb of Irene, which is then located in the district of Centurion, which is then situated south of the capital of South Africa, Pretoria. Now, I'm sure you're asking, why so many places within one place? I mean, a school, a shopping center, bit of overkill, right? Not really. See, the practice is what people in the geography and business world call maximizing your net utility. The owners put in all these services and resources so that they can charge people who are renting within South Downs more because there's such a high amount of accessibility. Not to derail, but here's a fact for all you football fans out there watching my video. In 2010, in preparation for the FIFA World Cup, the Italian squad rented out South Downs College's football fields to practice for their up and coming games. I think that's pretty cool, world class pitches. But I mean, I like South Downs for other reasons. For one, it's the first place my parents built and bought property, and we've been living there ever since. I like it even more because just take a step outside and you'll be greeted with a host of all sorts of different animals. Yeah, you see, the thing is, before South Downs was even an idea, let alone, an estate and what, it was a combination of savanna grassland and bushveld. So it only makes sense that even today, walking around South Downs, you can bump into wild hares, vervet monkeys, mongoose, skinks, and even puff adders. So you better watch out, eh? Unfortunately, the rapid urbanization of South Downs and the areas around it means that these poor animals have been driven out, and it's not going to be so easy to see them nowadays as it was back in the past. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people will say South Downs is the perfect combination of suburban and farm style living, but if you ask any geographer like me, they can tell you South Downs is nothing more than another example of humanity pretending to help nature and accommodate for nature, but really just depleting it of its resources and land. My parents and I's response to the ever fleeting environment around South Downs is to make sure our garden only has local indigenous flowering plants. Doing this helps the indigenous plants that are out in the wild, and the pollinating insects that require these plants for their entire life. It stabilizes their population. My parents never hired a gardener, so when I lived at home and whenever I go back, I always tend to the garden. They're my babies. I built a lot of cool skills too that don't involve cutting trees, so I'm not all that bad. Plants like me. So the next place I'm going to talk about retouches on this theme of man taking advantage of our planet and its resources. This is Centurion Lake. Once upon a time, it was the pride of Centurion. Now, Centurion Lake has an absolute distance of about 5.3 kilometers from South Downs, and a relative distance of about 13 minutes from South Downs, which means it's also in Centurion. It's situated between several hotels, office parks, and the Centurion Lake Mall. Yeah, I'm sure by now from the pictures before that you saw, the lake isn't the prettiest place. It's yuck. It's pretty yuck. But I tell you, once upon a time, it was one of the most beautiful places in the world, I'd say. One of my earliest memories is of me and my mother and father sitting on the banks of the Centurion on a Friday night watching the fountains that they used to have running every Friday night with music playing in the background. It was a beautiful tradition. Unfortunately, it only took us 15 years to pollute the lake to the extent that half of it had to be drained because the smell was devaluing the properties in and around the area. Today, efforts are being made to help the lake and improve it, but the situation is so bad that the city can only allow hired professionals to deal with the direct cleaning of it. I mean, I want to help too, and I feel bad that I can't. But I guess me telling you this story about it is in a way indirectly helping, not just Centurion Lake, but every other lake, every other natural part of the world. The lake was the pride of my hometown, and it was my first lesson in what happens to beautiful places when they're taken for granted. That's my video. There's a little cartoon of me coming back to reality. Thank you for watching. It's my first time doing this, so I hope I do it right. I'm going to try reference. I will, in fact, reference all the images that I took from the internet because obviously I barely took any of them. But these little Bitmoji generated avatars were done using the Android Bitmoji app with Snapchat. So shout out to Snapchat, shout out to Bitmoji, and I will source you too. Shout out to my GeoProf. I don't think I can say your name, but I hope this is what you were looking for and it meets the rubrics. um, Thank you for listening. Uh, I hope you learned something from this. Have a good one.